Hey, welcome into the Big Ten Huddle. I'm your host, JR. I've got a lot to talk about going on in the Big Ten basketball. It's the basketball episode. Got my guy Burke back here with me once again. Burke, how we doing?
We're doing good. Legs are tired walking around the kids for Halloween, but it's nice to be back now that they're done. That sugar rush is completed, and we can talk some ball.
There you go. It's always nice to get a good little sugar rush in right
Oh yeah,
before bed. I have a confession to make. I'm not dressing up in a costume for a podcast. I've seen that done multiple times today, and you can question my commitment to podcasting if you want. That's fine. Just not going to do it.
I
Call
was
me.
gonna come on here and wearing mine, but I was like, man, if I have to wear this for one more second, I'm gonna freak out. So I just couldn't do it. I couldn't do it.
I didn't even wear a costume. I don't dislike Halloween. I have no issue with Halloween. I mean it's a holiday. My kids get candy. That's fine. I've just never been I've never been a costume guy. Philip wants me to wear the hot dog. Don't don't have it, Philip. Sorry, not this time. Next time I lose a bet, maybe. All right, Burke, man, we got a lot to discuss. We have exhibition games to discuss. We have pros and cons of every single team. So we are going to try and get through all of them as quickly as we can, but we also don't want to just say two things about one team and then move on. So we don't say enough about your team. I apologize, but this is a Big Ten podcast. We talk about every single team. It annoys me when I go to a Big Ten podcast or a Big Ten show and they're like, oh, yeah, let's talk about Purdue and Minnesota and Wisconsin. And then we're done.
I
And
thought
it's
we
like,
were only talking Indiana basketball.
yeah, no, well, not tonight,
What
Burke.
channel
Maybe
is
another
this?
night. But it annoys me so much, and we are not going to be that kind of podcast. We're going to talk about every single team because if it's a Big Ten podcast, you should talk about every single team. So, Burke, I hope you're ready for that.
Oh man, as much fun as it is to talk, joyously about your own team, it's just as fun to talk smack about the others. So let's go into it.
So you're going to be really good at the cons, is what you're saying.
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome, awesome. Let's get to a few comments here really fast, and we'll get into it. Road Dust is here. He says, "Let's see IU looked okay versus Tennessee. Got to learn how to shoot from behind the 3-point line. They have a big preseason ranking. Woody needs to figure out how to get the shooters shooting. That is all. We'll get into that for sure. That's definitely a note I have, the shooting. John says, how we doing, everybody? Go Hoosiers. Cannot wait to hear everybody's thoughts about the Big Ten as a whole. We got them for you, John. No worries. And then loyal Brenton. Brenton's here. I'd rather Luke Goody put up lawyer in NCAA final lines now than later. So that's a good point there, Britton. That's a good point. And of course, Marion tomorrow night for IU. How many points do you all think IU beats Marion by? Okay, so not how many points they score. How many you think they beat Marion by? I'd probably go with 30, 40, somewhere in that range. Burke, what do you think?
We need to beat them by 40, like at least, because
Yeah.
we really need to start the season right. These games, like at the beginning of the season, were what kept Indiana out of the tournament. I mean, we finished above Michigan State. I thought that's all you had to do, but these games definitely kept us out. And setting the tempo in that Marion game is going to be so important for them.
There we go. There we go. And Philip sharing his opinion. Tennessee is overrated. I don't know. I did think. I mean, we'll talk about it when we get to IU. I did think that they didn't look maybe as crisp as they had in the past, but I mean, when has Tennessee looked crisp on offense? Not not normally. So,
I thought Felix Akpara was a shot blocker before, but man,
oh my gosh,
it's crazy that
that was painful watching
yeah,
that
we'll
game.
talk
Honestly,
about that.
oh my gosh,
Sorry,
can't
sorry,
keep good
sorry,
players.
sorry.
Okay, I hear Darren Peterson's coming to Ohio State, so it's great. He'll play there his freshman year, and then he'll leave just like everybody else. Okay,
Yep.
moving on. John says, Burke, it's okay to not talk Purdue, brother. We
All
have
right,
to,
John.
John. We
I
have
have
to.
to.
Sorry.
I have to.
Burke will bring up plenty of
No, but
cons.
I'm gonna have a rule. Like I'm gonna say one good thing, one bad. Like it's. I'm not. I'm an all right Hoosier fan. Okay.
Projected. You're gonna be good. Good. John says no football. Yes, no football. John, not tonight. We'll be back with football Saturday night.
I know you would
Darren
think with
Peterson's,
IU in the background, we're talking Big Ten football, but
yeah, right, football school now. Woodson's got a challenge. Darren Peterson's going to Kansas. Sorry to break your heart, JR. Most likely, I hear Ohio State's making a really strong NIL push here at the end. I don't know if it's quite Bryce Underwood strong that Michigan's doing right now in football. I don't think 5 million has been put out there, but they're making a strong push. So we'll see. He does have the Ohio ties. I tend to lean that way as well, John. I think it's probably going to be Kansas, but we shall see. One more. Road Dust says, so is college basketball going to turn into more of a transfer portal game? I think we're already there. I think if you're not active in the portal, you got to be one heck of a coach. And Matt Painter is going to test
yeah.
that this year. I mean, last year he brought in Lance Jones, and that was huge for them. I don't even think you need to bring in a ton of guys, but you got to recognize the holes in your team and bring somebody in to fill them. And I mean, I give all the credit in the world to Painter last year bringing in Lance Jones like that, but this year really seems like they took a little bit of a risk, and I don't know. We'll see how it pays out for him. But do you feel the same?
If you want to be competitive year after year, you have to, because like say you develop a guy too well, he's gone, and then there's a glaring hole in your roster that needs addressed with a transfer.
It's true. It's true. All right, Burke. Let's start off with. Let's just go in alphabetical order. How's that sound? So
Let's
Illinois
go.
fans, congrats, you've been drawn first. Illinois faced Ole Miss in their scrimmage. Illinois scored 74. Ole Miss did put up 91 in this one. I got to be honest, I wasn't super surprised by it, Burke. I mean, this is a new team essentially an all new team for Illinois. A lot of really good players, but typically when you bring in new players like this, the offense is a little bit ahead of the defense, and Ole Miss has some very good offensive players. I think Ole Miss could be one of the better offensive teams in the nation this year. And, they definitely showed it against Illinois. I felt like Illinois had a really good game from Dre Gibbs' Longhorn. I thought that was a really good piece for them. However, 20-plus turnovers was not what I wanted to see. So looking at this game, I definitely want to see Illinois be better with the basketball, obviously, and they need to have some better three-point shooting defense as well. Ole Miss in this one shot 12 for 23 from behind the arc. That was really, really good for them. And then the other piece of news was Ivisic, however you pronounce his name, he was cleared by the NCAA earlier today. So he is good to go. I think he's going to be labeled a sophomore with 3 years to play. I don't know how that works, but whatever. It is what it is. Burke, you have any thoughts on the pros and cons of Illinois coming out of this Ole Miss game?
I got some notes here on this game, actually. Let me pull them up. Dude, going down 17 right out of the gate, 8 minutes into the game, like,
yeah,
you're just shooting yourself in the foot. There's nothing you can do there. As just the Illinois roster, there are so many new pieces for this team, but if there is one guy that by the end of the season, the team will look vastly different and they will look a lot more cohesive, it is Brad Underwood. He would be able to bring that together. As for it was an ugly look. I mean, but you kind of expect Brad to take just a team of misfits. I would say misfits just because it's just a collection of all these guys from other schools, but he gets them to play well eventually, but it is going to take those growing pains. These guys not playing together defensively. Kasparis Jakusionis looks like he was excited for the moment, like the dribbling off his legs. Like it was tiny.
Mm-hmm.
The little mistakes just ate them alive. And as for just the guys who were Illinois guys, like Ty Rodgers, I just thought that they could have expected more out of him. I thought they would have expected more out of him, but other than that, Illinois looked terrible. They looked terrible, but I don't expect them to be terrible. That's not it. Yeah.
Yeah, I found them pressing a lot when they went down early, and that's obviously not going to be a good recipe for this team. This isn't a team that's going to give you spectacular defense that's going to get you back in the game, and that's just what you have in this team this year. Now, I think they have really good offense, so you get to work early and you keep yourself in the game. I could see a team like this pulling away, getting really excited and getting the crowd into it, stuff like that. Jack Uonis. He is a very good player. The flashes we saw from him were fantastic. I was a little what's the word, discouraged, I guess I could say, by Ben Humerkaus. I felt like he should have done more in that game. I mean, you got 21 minutes with 2 points, 1 steal, um, and a rebound, an assist, and a foul. I mean, I know he's not the biggest player in the world who's going to make the most plays, but still, out of 21 minutes from a starter, you need more than
Yeah.
that. He also was 0 for 4 from the 3-point line. I don't think he's going to do that all season. He's going to shoot much better than that, and he's going to be much more of a threat in that way. But overall, I mean, this just looked like an Illinois team that's new to playing with each other, and they gotta get it right. But I'm totally with you. If anybody can get it right, it's Brad Underwood.
Yeah, and they did them no favors by making this easily the most easily accessible exhibition game in the lineup. I feel like this was the easiest to find, the easiest that you might have just accidentally stumbled upon. But yeah. Illinois, they'll figure it out, and Brad figures it out.
Yeah.
So
they'll be fine. I feel pretty confident in the fact that I didn't pick them to win the Big Ten this year. I think they have a lot to figure out, but you do have enough time to, still do well in the Big Ten, obviously, this year. But I still think this can be a top 4 team in the Big Ten.
Yeah, also, Ben Humrickhouse, he ain't going to go over or whatever. He ain't going to – the numbers will find the mean, and they'll convert at a higher rate, so can't worry about it.
For sure. Before we get to IU, Scott is here. Scott says, I joined late, so I don't know if anyone mentioned this, but Marion, who plays IU tomorrow, is coached by Pat Knight, Bobby's son, of course. Yes, I was talking with my mother-in-law about that earlier today. She's very excited for him to be there. I think that'll be a really cool thing. I love that they do this, Burke. I love that teams will play each other kind of based a little bit on the coaching stuff.
La Familia, man.
Yeah, he played a former coach that he had coached with in his scrimmage, and then you're seeing other coaches like this Indiana playing Marion with Pat Knight. It's just a really cool thing. I love it.
I will say about that though, it was cool getting to see the Marion guys get to go up and really explore the facilities and look around and step on Assembly Hall. I think it was just last week they took pictures, the Marion Knights, all of them, and we just have to beat them like that is how they are experiencing Assembly Hall. If they're walking through Assembly Hall like I would walk through Assembly Hall, we need to whoop them accordingly. So
yeah, give them the full experience, right? Welcome. And
it was on
now.
On that. It is a team of half IU, half Purdue fans. So you need to beat them like a bunch of fans.
I love it. Well, speaking of that, let's talk a little bit of IU here. Burke, we had IU face off against Tennessee in their game. They won the game. Tennessee had 0 field goals in the last 3 minutes and 50 seconds. Miles Rice and Malik Renew. I am loving this duo. They were fantastic together. The pick and roll game with what they were able to do. Umar Balla was in there as well. Umar Balla was not the best, offensive threat in the world, but he did get, 11 rebounds, I think it was in the game. I'm checking. It is, 11 rebounds. I'm glad I have good memory. He got 11 rebounds in the game, so I did think he looked impressive. However, Indiana, they do need to figure out the 3-point shooting. 1 for 12. I don't think these players are going to continue to shoot 1 for 12, that being Goody, Carlisle, and Rice, but whatever Mike Woodson has to do, these guys were good shooters before they came to IU. They need to be good shooters while they're at IU now. Your thoughts?
I mean, you're saying everything I've been listening to for the last 4 years of Indiana basketball. How come these guys were able to shoot before? Weren't they shooters in high school? What happened? It needs a draft. I don't know what it is. If it's bad juju or a curse or something going on, it's been rough, but I have to just, put trust in the system. I hope that watching this game, I do have a little more faith that it'll all figure itself out, because the floor spacing in this game alone against Tennessee, we're talking, was better than I've seen in the last 3 years of Indiana basketball. Which is crazy considering I thought Malik and Umar in the paint was going to be, more congested than TJ. I thought that Kalel Ware and Malik Renew working together was going to be the key to spreading the floor, because both those guys can spread the floor.
Right.
But it's just crazy that we get this big bruiser in, and now the floor looks more open than ever. And then, you just talked about how Miles went off, took care of the game, 20 points, 4 assists. But Mackenzie Mbako, he wasn't really being super aggressive when he didn't have to be. But you saw the moment that the backcourt playmakers, the backcourt game changers went off the court, Mackenzie Mbako took it to another gear. And that's just exactly what we need to him. When there isn't a bucket on the floor, we need him to make the bucket.
Was that when he went on that 10-0 run?
Yes. Yeah. It's when Miles and Kanan were both on the bench. And as far as Ballo, like the pros and cons with that guy alone, because he didn't look as aggressive against Felix Okpara, and credit to Felix Okpara. That dude looked tough as nails.
He looked jacked, dude. He got himself in the weight room this offseason.
He's a monster defensively in the interior, and he always was, but they never had him play like a chunk of minutes, which is what I'm talking about with Umar. Mike Woodson pushed Umar here. Like, he had him playing 32 minutes. This guy averaged 24 at Arizona.
Did you think he looked gassed at the end of the game?
I don't know if it was. I think he's getting used to a marathon comparatively. I don't know, but
I feel like half of Umar Ballo's, half of his practice recently has just been running laps. Mike Woodson was like, "Hey, you're gonna need to play more than 20 minutes. Just go run laps outside. We'll put the backup center in."
Like, when he's coming off of the minute share that he was taking at Arizona, you kind of have to. That big, something needs done when you're almost like taking a third of your minutes and putting it on top.
Yeah. I will say, to me, I don't know what you think about this. Maybe I'm being overly critical. You tell me. But I felt like the 0 field goals in the final 3 minutes and 50 seconds, I heard that talked about in a lot of articles. But when I watched it, like, it didn't feel like there were 0 field goals made. It just felt like Tennessee missed a wide open 3-pointer. They took a couple contested 3-pointers, and then they had multiple offensive rebounds that they got fouled and then went to the foul line. So, like, I don't know. Like, to me, yes, they didn't make any field goals, but IU, like, you also have to get those offensive rebounds, right? Like, it didn't feel like it was a great defensive effort. I mean, credit to IU, they stopped them, but, like, felt like there should have been less points scored because of less offensive rebounds and less fouls.
I could see how you could think that wasn't great defense out of the gate for Indiana, but compared to seasons past, that was absolutely fabulous defense from Indiana. Like, the way that this team has come out in seasons prior, they just leave open threes after open threes. That's what I was like, FGCU last season, open 3 after open 3, and that's one of those games that comes back to bite us in the butt. And I don't know, it was crazy watching that team take as many open 3s as they were and nobody doing anything about it. That wasn't the case as much here. I feel like they're really tightening it up, and it all starts with that backcourt just getting a turnover, getting fresh, and Miles leading this team. Like, it is crazy how he's been able to come on, and you can see him taking a leadership role.
Yeah, Miles Rice is one of the players I felt like in the offseason I wanted to see play the most because of the questions with Mike Woodson and his backcourts and stuff like that. And also, like, can he come in and be a good piece? And I know Tennessee probably isn't going to be as good this year as they have been in the past, but this is still, I mean, he still has Zakai Ziegler on him, who's a good defensive player, right? I mean, like, this is still a team that has had good defense the past few years, and I think they're going to continue to do that.
It's Rick Barnes. It's Rick Barnes, and he doesn't have a playmaker that he's like, I guess you don't have to play defense because you're just scoring all of our buckets. That isn't the case for him this year. He is going to have a defensive identity, and I'm glad the Hoosiers were able to come out on top.
Right, exactly. So, Burke, you want to take this? John's asking about the multiple technicals in the exhibition game.
Okay. I mean,
I figured you had
technical,
some words.
They're such a problem. I was so mad. I'm like, they were ticky-tack technicals. They were so ticky-tack. But even then, I'm
like, what are we doing? It's an exhibition game, guys.
I know.
Like,
it was ridiculous they called those. It was ridiculous. But even then, I'm like, dude, you guys have done so much prior. I'm hurt. So, like, even the ticky-tack ones, I get mad at you guys about. Like, it's Thanks for bringing it up, John.
John is saying he wants Mike Woodson to be a little bit more fired up. He's the opposite of Signetti, not fired up enough. I mean, it's an exhibition game. I feel like he's just kind of letting his players play. He's shown fiery moments in the past. I think he'll be okay. What do you think?
Up on you.
Yeah.
I think when the moment calls for it, we'll get some fire out of Woodson.
I agree. We got Steven here excited about Rutgers. Hey, I got a lot of good things to say about Rutgers later on. I don't think our Purdue friends' pick of Rutgers being last place in the Big Ten is going to go well for them. So I got some thoughts about them later on. Stay tuned, Steven. We're going in alphabetical order. So our next team is Iowa. We have Iowa coming in, playing against Minnesota Duluth. I just thought that was so funny. Made me think of the Duluth trading commercials. I mean, I don't know. In some of these games, it's hard to really think too much about them. I did think it was weird that Iowa, I mean, I guess I thought it was weird. It's kind of on par for Iowa. Iowa let up 81 points to Minnesota Duluth. Like, okay, I get it, Iowa. You're not a great defensive team, but this is a Division II team. Like, you shouldn't be giving up 81 points.
I'm not going to lie. I did not know anything about this game. They gave up 81 points to Minnesota Duluth.
I mean, don't get me wrong. Josh Dix and Peyton Sandford and Owen Freeman look like a really good big three scoring-wise. Like, they are going to be a legit, very good scoring trio in the Big Ten. They were efficient in their shooting. They also had some promising young players like Price Sandford do a good job. But, I mean, for me, like, I felt like Iowa was going to have a little bit of a turn with Owen Freeman being a better defender. It's like Fran McCaffrey was like, no, Owen, you can't be a better defender. Like, focus on offense, please. Like, I don't know. Like, I picked him to be my, like, you know, kind of like, not Cinderella team, but like better than people are expecting. I still think they have that opportunity with, you know, Peyton Sandford and Josh Dix and Owen Freeman's offense. But I don't know. Like, it just over the years, it's just like there continues to be defensive concerns. And also, the point guard play was not nearly what I thought it would be. Uh-oh. Is Burke with us? We lost Burke. All right. I'll keep going. Yeah, so they had turnover concerns. They had 12 turnovers. I think it was Fran after the game called them inexplicable, and most of those were from Brock Harding and Drew Thewell. Owen Freeman did have 3 of those. Thewell had 3, and then Brock Harding also had 3. So you have 6 turnovers between your 2 point guards. Like, against a Division II opponent, this isn't good enough in my mind. So I don't know. Like, I thought Drew Thewell would be a better piece for this Iowa team to be able to have some better point guard play, but that's obviously not the case going into it. I think they can obviously get better, but not only was it the turnovers, it was the 1 of 7 shooting for both of those players as well. So I have my concerns about Iowa. I'm not too concerned because I think the big three is definitely going to help them. But let's be honest, the expectations of Iowa here is not for them to win the Big Ten. Like, the expectations for Iowa is to finish in the top half of the Big Ten and be a tournament team. That's what I would say with these guys coming back. And I definitely think they can do that. I think many people are picking them to be worse than that, which I didn't really understand, but that's that's what people are picking. So, what's John saying? John says, JR, I said to you that Minnesota is the worst team in the Big Ten. I think you said Washington would be the worst, and I'm starting to agree with you. Yeah, we'll get to Washington here soon. They played a cupcake team. There's not much you can do there. So there we go. There's Burke back with us.
All right,
Burke.
Jeez.
Did your internet decide to quit on you for a minute?
Sounds like kids stomping upstairs, so I bet they kicked over the router.
That's funny. All right, Iowa, did you have any thoughts on, defense, obviously, the main concern here. I pointed out the point guards, their lack of shooting, their turnover issues, 6 turnovers between the two of them, which isn't all that bad, but when it comes to playing a Division II team, you shouldn't have that many turnovers. What do you think?
Yeah, 81 points against a Division II team is tough. But also, the more I thought about it, I was just like, maybe that just speaks to how many shots Iowa probably took up. I bet they had just an insane amount of possessions. As Peyton Sanford on a 3-second like shot clock. But yeah, other than that, Iowa, no real thoughts there yet.
Yeah.
I don't really know what to. Yeah.
They were 41 of 69, so they had a good percentage there. Duluth did have 17 points off the 21 turnovers, so I mean that's what's going to happen. But there was never really a point in this game where I felt like anything was going to happen to Iowa. Like there were rough patches, but the entire time I was like, Iowa's going to pull this one out. They're just going to pull ahead. Philip says Iowa doesn't know what defense is. Does Fran know how to coach defense? Didn't he put out a book for defense?
I don't know. Did he? That would be a wild
read. I think like early on in his career, Fran McCaffrey wrote a book about defense or something like that. I need to go look it up. I'll report back on another podcast about that. So, all right, Burke, that was Iowa. We are now going to get into Maryland. All right, Maryland, fill up your favorite. So here we go. Maryland defeats Seton Hall 73-52. Rodney Rice looked good. Julian Reese, he had 12 points, 13 rebounds. Rodney Rice had 14 points, 3 3-pointers. Jacoby Gillespie recorded 15 points, 5 assists, 3 rebounds. I felt like this was a good performance from Maryland. They had some balance scoring. I think they had 5 or 6 different guys in double figures. I don't have a box score for this one, so I'm going to be going off my memory a little bit more for some of this stuff that I saw. But Jacoby Gillespie, like, this is a good performance by him. I think we are finally out of the era where it's one-man offense for Maryland Burke. I think we have a full team to play offense now. I think this is good news for the Terrapins, but their forwards still do lack some shooting. Tafara, Gapar, however you pronounce his name, I apologize, and Jordan Geronimo. I feel like those guys are going to kind of continue to battle for time throughout the year. Neither of them really much of a shooter. Both should be good defenders, but neither much of a shooter. What do you think, Burke?
Yeah, I mean, not much of a shooter. Out of those names, the most I know particularly well is Jordan Geronimo. That dude fought for minutes last year. Got a handful of them, but it looks like they really
he was starting.
Yeah, they really re-upped. So his minutes were fewer and further between this season. But as for the team overall, yeah, like is it going to work with Derek Queen and Julian Reese down low? Because like Julian Reese isn't a particularly great playmaker, like on the bounce from the outside attacking into the interior. It's just going to be interesting to see because there are so many new teams that look to be making this too big lineup. Like Michigan is owning it, and looks like Maryland could. Yeah. But yeah. Other than that, Maryland, my only thoughts on them are always before the season really starts is I trusted you. That's all I think. I trusted you, and I can't trust you again.
Yeah, Willard came out and said he didn't want to play Queen and Reese together any more than 12 minutes a game at the most. I don't think that's the best decision. I kind of question why he's doing that. I'm with you. Like, there's a lot of Big Ten teams that are going to be willing to play double bigs this year. Michigan being, the prime example of that. But, like, I mean, you play your best players, right? Like, to me, Jordan Geronimo and Tafara, like, they are not better than what I saw out of Queen in this one. I felt like Queen, he looked like a freshman, but at the end of the day, like, he was good. And those guys, they don't offer shooting. They fail to offer as much rebounding and physicality. I felt like Queen went out there and he had a good first game. And to me, like, I put Queen out there with Reese.
Yeah, and if you're Queen, like, if you're Maryland, Queen's happiness matters. It does.
Right.
Like, because you want the next Derek Queen. You want the next Derek Queen and then the Derek Queen after that. So, yeah, it's just interesting that he's refusing to play them together so much when you would think that Julian Reese is he's the face of that team, right? When I think of that team, he is the first I think of. Yeah. So, like, how many minutes is Derek Queen truly going to have in the first year after he committed to them? Probably based on a lot of playing time, because I bet Indiana sold him a pretty decent bill of goods. So, yeah, it's just interesting to me.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes continuing on. I just look at it and I don't see who you have at the 4 that's a better option than Queen and Reese together. I know you lose a little bit in athleticism and stuff like that, but
Even
I
if
mean,
the difference is even if Queen is marginally worse than the next guy, you give it to Queen to make him like, sorry, that's the game now. You got to make that dude happy.
right, right. Philip says, I see Maryland being guarded the way everyone guards Woodson. Offense pack the paint. I do think Gillespie will help with that. I think you're right. That's what a lot of teams will probably do. But if what's the freshman from last year name? The 3, Harris Smith.
Yep.
Um, I didn't see any notable 3-point shooting from him in this game that really stuck out to me. So if he continues to not have a shot from behind the arc, like really the only shooters you have are Rice and Gillespie. They can shoot, obviously, but I mean those guys are good enough playmakers.
What you are explaining is the formula that Maryland has had the last 3 years.
Right. So we'll see how it goes.
See, I say that, but then at the same time, I'm like, Jacoby Gillespie.
That's his new nickname, Jalobi.
Jalobi. He had a good performance, but there was something different about Jameer Young. Like, he was a playmaker to another degree that I just don't think Jacoby will get to.
To me, Maryland lost an aspect of their team in Jameer Young, similar to what Purdue lost in Zach Edey. Like, I know Jameer
similar
Young,
to what Northwestern lost in Boo Booey.
Yeah. So, I mean, just like when I talk about importance, obviously Jameer Young was not, 2-time player of the year and stuff like that. Don't come at me, Purdue fans. I'm just saying, like, importance and what he brought to the floor and what he meant to your team and what he was able to provide. Like, so Maryland, they're going to be on a journey this year to try and replace that. I do think Gillespie and Rice were good, so I'm not too concerned, but, that was just a huge, huge piece for their team. So, all right, let's get to Michigan now. Burke, we had Michigan face off against both Toledo and Oakland. So neither were, super stout teams or anything like that. However, Toledo did give them a pretty good game. I believe the final score was 96-92. I felt like Michigan, they had some good, strong ball movement. They were good on defense. I mean, this is a good Dusty May team. I felt like they performed well. Toledo, I felt like gave them a really good game. I was kind of impressed with Toledo. Wouldn't be surprised if they make a run for the MAC this year and possibly win that. And I mean, Dusty May, they got a deep bench. I feel like anytime they went to a guy on the bench, you didn't see too much of a drop off. And I don't mean that to say that their starters weren't as good as their bench or something like that. To me, my biggest concern right now, and it's so weird because they have the 2 7-footers. I felt like they didn't finish at the rim super well, and I felt like they weren't overly physical, especially against Toledo. I felt like Toledo kind of punched them in the mouth a little bit, which is weird because if you have 2 7-footers, you should be way more physical than any MAC team that goes out there. But it felt like Michigan wasn't responding as well to the physicality as I would have liked. Now, it got better throughout the game. I'll give them credit for that. It didn't stay that way for the entire game. But for me, like, if you're going to struggle with physicality against Toledo, like, I got news for you. The Big Ten, it's not going to be a good place for you.
Yeah, taking a MAC team that down like close to the wire, that's just dirty business.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's no Division II team like Minnesota Duluth or anything like that, but still, I mean, this is, you're going to need to see some better finishing at the rim and some better physicality. But like I said, I do like other aspects of this team, so I'm not knocking them. Like, Michigan has a good team this year, I feel like.
Oh yeah, I will say in that game, however they played defensively, allowing Toledo to keep up with them like that, like he's been able to bring those guys together, and they look really good and really cohesive out of the gate. I'm impressed with how quickly just how they've looked so quickly, I guess. I'm trying to think of how to say that, but
yeah. I did note in the Oakland game, Michigan held Oakland to shooting 2 for 30 from 3. That's really bad by Oakland, but
yeah,
I don't know if that's so much bad on Oakland as I felt like this was
so many 3-point
good defensive
shots.
performance. it's a good defensive performance on the outside for. And now, granted, some of that was let's pass the ball around the arc until somebody shoots it, but still, like
Yeah.
you got to play good defense to make that happen. So
No, see, like what I was saying about just them coming out impressed me. They've been doing that. Like Juwan Howard had his teams to be able to do that. I just feel like you can trust it a little more now that May's in town. Like I truly
yeah.
do.
Philip says Michigan is bubbly. Yeah, they'll probably be a bubble team to make the tournament this year. But I would say they're closer to being a tournament team than not a tournament team, if that makes sense. Would you agree?
Yeah. I don't know, man. This conference is tough. Like this conference is deep. And we know once it gets going, like anything can happen when anybody's playing in somebody else's floor.
Yeah. I just look
But
at it and like Michigan State last year. Michigan State hardly got blown out. And so their Ken Palm numbers and stuff like that looked much better.
mhm.
I could see this Michigan team being a team that, they don't get to 20 wins, but they don't get blown out by anybody. Like they got the playmakers, they got the depth, they have the defense that I don't see them losing games by 10 or more consistently. Now Ohio State last year, that was a whole different story. Ohio State, decided to beat Purdue, but then they decided to lose to Maryland a couple weeks before that, and Chris Holtmann was still the coach. But in this, like with Dusty May, I see them playing solid basketball all year long. For me, it's the physicality. Can the physicality get better and increase in Big Ten play to where you're finishing around the rim better and your 7-footers aren't getting pushed around by guys shorter than them, but they are thicker than them in Umar Ballo.
Yeah, and we've been boosting them up. I do want to say, like, as far as what you're going to get, like, is there more to get from these guys? Because I mean, all these guys are kind of the product they are, right?
Right.
So
Yeah.
I mean, this team's good, but everybody's going to get a lot better.
Yep.
Or not than them, but just like themselves. I mean,
Right. Yeah. Everybody's going to keep improving. And I think that's the thing right now is like we're pointing out people's deficiencies, but it's like who improved from those deficiencies the
no, but I'm
best.
saying I think that Michigan's deficiency might be their inability to improve as much as the rest because they're just coming in with the players that, I mean,
Oh, okay.
they've kind of hit their ceiling. A lot of these guys.
Gotcha. That could be. That could be. We'll see. We'll see what Dusty May can do with him. Dusty May's a good coach, so we'll see if he can coach him up and get him to another level. All right. Let's get into here we go. Michigan State, Burke. Michigan State had their game against Ferris State. I actually do have a box score for this one, thankfully. Felt like the guard play was good between Trey Holloman and Jeremy Fears. I was kind of concerned about Jeremy Fears not playing basketball for so long, but he looked good. In this one, they had 17 assists together, only 2 turnovers. Those two, I feel like this is really good, strong backcourt. This could be one of the better backcourts in the Big Ten. Cohen Carr is an athletic freak. Oh my gosh, like in transition, this guy is going to be dangerous. You are not going to want to see Cohen Carr in transition. I just felt like he was fantastic. Good rebounder, all the things. Like he's doing all the dirty work you want him to do down there. And then he's got obviously the fast break skills, like I said. However, there were some issues. Burke, the 5 spot. What is Michigan State going to do with the 5 spot this year?
I don't know.
It was not great.
I don't know. Izzo's so set in his ways. Like, this is the easiest time that this doesn't have to be like this does not have to be an issue for any Big Ten team. Like, address the center. If he has more than enough resources for this to not be an issue, and it's just sad what he's doing to just a fan base that has supported him for so long.
Yeah. I mean, Jackson Kohler did play the 4 in this one a little bit, which I don't hate just because I don't think he has the defense to contend with some of the 5s or the bigs that play the 5 in the Big Ten. Xavier Booker, I mean, I don't know, like he can play the 5, but at the end of the day, I feel like they've been training him for the 4 so much that like the 5 is now kind of foreign to him. Because even when he plays the 5, he's out there on the perimeter so much, and it's like, okay, you have good spacing, but I don't know. To me, it just seems like a weak spot, and Izzo's gonna have to figure something out. He can't be stubborn this year. He's gonna have to figure something out.
Well, I mean, I don't know why he can't look around the country and figure it out. Like, look at Kansas, just their game with Fiore Badunga. Like, Self just let him run right out of the gate. Like, it looks like he's going to be a massive part of this team right out of the gate. Sometimes you got to just let these guys bring what they can, because what they can is pretty dang good, or else they wouldn't have even been on your radar. Yeah, it's just tough. It's tough that is where they're going to have to find a new spot, because there are some teams that are going to exploit their front court.
Yeah. Burke, Jaden Akins did not look great. I've heard he hasn't looked great in practice. I heard he hasn't been doing great ever since they went to Spain. I can't remember if he did well in Spain or not. I don't think he did. But, I mean, if Jaden Akins keeps playing like this, they got a guy behind him, Jace Richardson, that looks really good. The freshman, like, he's doing a really good job. He gave him 11 minutes, 8 points, 3 for 3 on field goals, 2 for 2 behind the arc. He had 1 offensive rebound, 2 defensive rebounds, an assist. He did get a foul, but 1 steal, 0 turnovers. Like, I mean, I know you want to play your seniors, but if Jaden Akins keeps giving you 23 points with only 3 points, 1 for 5, 0 for 2, turnovers, like, at a certain point, you got to go with Richardson.
Yeah, any sane man would.
But I mean, is Izzo going to be willing to go away from the senior though? Like,
no, never ever.
I would get it if it was Tyson Walker, right? Like, if it was Tyson Walker and he had proven himself in this way, like, you let him shoot through it, you let him get through it.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Like, to me, if Jaden Akins continues this on for like the first 3 or 4 games of the season, I'm starting Richardson.
Oh, yeah. You have to give your guy every chance he can in the exhibition just to work through this. Like, honestly, Aiken should be on the floor for 40 minutes. Like, 40 minutes until we figure this out.
Yeah, I agree. Philip is saying that their non-conference, I remember their non-conference being weaker than normal, but
that's good.
Let's look at it really fast.
Nothing non-conference. Nothing wrong with that.
They did also play. I should mention this. They did also play a scrimmage exhibition against Northern Michigan, but I didn't really think there was much in that. So they do get to the Champions Classic. They'll play Kansas there, so that's a hard one. And then Colorado at the Maui Invitational. They could face UConn. They could face Memphis. And then, Oakland, Florida Atlantic, Western Michigan. Yeah. So, I mean, you do have a couple on there that's a little bit tougher, but I agree with Philip. It's not what it used to be. Bowling Green, Sanford. Oh, good. Sanford and Michigan State's on Peacock. Love when they're on Peacock.
Hey, it's better than CreightonSports.com or whatever.
Oh my gosh.
Some of these teams are posting the games through their God.
The Purdue fans crashed the Creighton website. That was hilarious.
Yeah, that's credit.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Big Ten showing out.
Awesome. John says non-Big Ten related comment, but the 2025 Maui Invitational is one of the worst lineups I've ever seen. Yeah, it's not great. I mean, they do have UConn in there. They do have Michigan State, but I mean, I don't know who's the other headliner in that. North Carolina, they're probably the other one. But I mean, when you have Colorado, Dayton, Auburn, Iowa State, I guess is good. I don't know. I can't remember what the last ones were, but I do remember.
Sound like good teams, just not like splashy names.
Oh, John's saying that's 2024. Am I looking at 2024? Or am I looking at 20? Oh, the 2025. Oh, okay, he's talking about next year. I apologize, John. Okay, yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah, because I think 2 teams just got approved for 2025 earlier today. I can't remember who they were, but anyway, got too much to talk about now. Sorry, can't USC Maui bound 2025. I remember they are in the Maui in 2025.
I'll tell you real quick. Baylor Bears, Chaminade Silver Swords, North Carolina State Wolfpack Orducks, Seton Hall Pirates, Texas Longhorns, UNLV Running Rebels, and the USC Trojans. Yeah, that's a pretty terrible Maui.
Yeah. That's awful compared to Michigan State,
Yeah,
UConn, North Carolina, Iowa State.
yeah.
Yeah, that's not great. Wonder how that happened. How did Dayton get in the Maui? That's awesome for Dayton. All right, let's get to the next game here. We had Minnesota go up against Grand Valley State. I think Grand Valley State also, maybe I'm thinking of a different team, but I think they also played Purdue. So Minnesota in this one, Coach Ben Johnson, he was talking after the game, talked about the team's improvement in the second half. He definitely wanted to see some better stuff from the team in the second half, and he saw that. Felt like there was a lot of good assists in this one. Felt like they were sharing the ball well. I mean, I know they have Dawson Garcia, but I'm curious who kind of the leader scorer of this team is other than him, right? I mean, he's obviously a big piece of it, but what are they going to do there? And then the key players, Mike Mitchell and Dawson Garcia, it felt like everything kind of ran through them so much it was a little bit overused. I realize that saying that is a little bit of too much criticism, I guess, but I don't love the supporting pieces they have around those two right now. I feel like that could become an issue for them later on, especially defensively. I did not like the inconsistencies on defense in this one, especially against the Grand Valley State. That they should be much better there.
Yeah, I think I do like Ben Johnson as a coach. I think he's a pretty great X's and O's coach. And I think if they are being overused, I think there's a reason. Like I feel like that he thinks that that's his best shot to win. And yeah, my pro for this team, like after watching these, is I think Ben Johnson is a decent coach. I think he's a good coach. I think he's great for Minnesota. The only problem is I think anybody he can develop is gone. Like it's an untenable position he's in. He's at home at his alma mater, but then he also has to keep up with this NIL game that they just can't right now.
Right.
And yeah, it is tough to see that this team, the role players that had to come in and replace the likes of Elijah Hawkins, Pharrell Payne, those guys, like it's taken them a while to get used to it, but I believe they'll find their way. How did this team look last season? I don't really remember how they
In the
came out of the
preseason?
gate. Yeah. Or
Yeah, I mean, you saw flashes, but Elijah Hawkins didn't really come on until kind of toward Big Ten play. You saw how quick he was and stuff, but he really started getting better with his handling kind of midway through the non-conference. But they had such a bad non-conference that really wasn't too much to talk about. But they continued on in Big Ten play and just did a really good job. Him and uh, Braden Smith were like two of the only players in the country that were averaging over, I think, 7 assists last year at one point. So that was really good for them.
I do feel like over the course of last season, the Dawson Garcia talk went down, like as much as he was responsible in turn with that Elijah Hawkins uprising. So I do think eventually Ben Johnson, after this rough start, may be able to get something going here. So I have confidence
Yeah,
in you, Minnesota.
yeah. And Brendan Wisby, I forgot to mention him. He looked good in this one as well. They kind of have like some smaller guards they've put together here between him, Cochran, Williams, and Patterson. So those guys are going to have to try and kind of play off of each other and figure out what they're going to do there. But overall, I liked what I saw from Brendan Ridsby. And then, like I said, Mike Mitchell Jr., like him and Dawson Garcia, they're going to be the stars of this team. He looks like Mike Mitchell Jr. looks like somebody that could be a second or third team Big Ten type of player. But at the end of the day, they played. I said the wrong name earlier. I apologize. They played Hamlin and who was the other one? Ben Ben Ejid State, two Division III teams. So, I mean, anybody should look good against those teams.
Yeah,
It's just
got to.
I didn't really see a ton of struggles other than you know it's just guys. Oh, the big part of it. I forgot to mention this is Frank Mitchell did get injured, injured his shoulder against Hamlin. So we'll see what happens there. But yeah, hopefully Frank Mitchell's okay because they're going to need him to play some minutes down low this season. All right, let's get to Nebraska, who played
Speaking
Grand
of
Valley
injury,
State. Speaking of injury for them, Rafe Mast is obviously out for the season. Gavin Griffiths, though, was the leading scorer against Grand Valley State. Was kind of surprised by that. He came off the bench and had 14 points. Bryce Williams had 13. Juwan Gary had 9. I felt like, this was kind of what you saw a little bit from Nebraska last year. The defensive intensity was really good. Of course, they were playing at home, so that always helps with Nebraska. They handled the pressure well on defense. They got opportunities for some of the young players, Brendan Frager and Nick Janikowski. Those guys got into play. That was good for them. I don't really think they'll be pieces this year, but that was good to see them play. I felt like Nebraska needs to improve their spacing, especially coming off last year where they were shooting so well and some of the stuff they were doing. I think a little bit of that is trying to adjust to not having Rank Mast and him at the top of the key helping with that. But for me, it was a really good sign to see Griffiths get 14 points in this game. If he can give you possibly a leading scorer role on the team coming off the bench, that's huge for them.
Yeah, that's huge for them. That's huge for him. I mean, if he was at his last home, he ain't getting none of those shots.
Yeah.
Yeah, Nebraska. The Rink Mask injury is truly just gutting. Like that dude was everything for them. Like I don't even mean that discouraging them like for the season moving forward. I just mean he stirred the drink. Everything went through him at the top of the key with that ball. TJD light is what I called Rink Mask with the way he operated in the post, passing out like that. Like it's just such a bummer to see that he's not going to be able to contribute this season. As for the rest, Nebraska, they're going to find a way to make some shots, man. They're going to find a way to make some shots. So can't be too worried.
Well, with a siege on this team too, it has to happen eventually, right?
Yeah, that's going to be interesting. If the Nebraska narrative can get shooters going, and we'll see how that meets just Connor Essegian after the last year he had.
Yeah. Unfortunately, my box score for Nebraska is not loading. Sorry, guys. I would tell you exactly how Essegian did, but it's not loading right now. So we'll just move on to Kent's favorite team, Northwestern. Northwestern played against Lewis. They had some very good performances. Of course, Lewis, another lower division team, not a great one, but Nick Martinelli, he had 25 points, 6 rebounds, and 5 assists. Justin Mullins, he was kind of an unsung hero. He had a plus minus of plus 30, which that's like an Edey number a little bit right there. So he did not have the dominant performance of a Zach Edey, but had the dominant plus minus of 1. Good to see there. Ty Berry had 5 points. Matthew Nicholson had 8 points. Jalen Leach, the transfer coming in, he had 20 points. That was really good to see. We'll see how this team goes moving forward, but I really like the ball movement. A team that was so dependent on Boo Buie last year, Burke, they had a lot of good ball movement. That was a good thing to see, but the defense definitely needs to take a step up, which is not something I thought was going to be an issue without Boo Buie there. I thought you would have more issues on the offensive end, and they did have some. I don't want to make it sound like it was a perfect offensive game, but I mean, they had trouble defending some of Lewis's smaller lineups that they were able to put out there, particularly in the pick and roll situations and making defensive adjustments. So Chris Collins, great offensive mind. He's always going to get this offense ready, but they're going to have to do better with the defense this year. Your thoughts, Burke?
My thoughts, Nick Martinelli looks like a dude. He looks like he could be Northwestern's dude.
Yep.
My con for them, though, is the dude's gone. Like, Boo Buie's gone.
Boo Buie.
He just brought up everyone in that program so far on the floor. It's going to be interesting to see how they can just reload from that. It's crazy the holes that some of these teams are having to address this year. I feel like it's more than usual.
But I feel like it's good for teams that are having to do that, right? Like this is a good year for Northwestern to have to address a hole of Boo Buie because you have Rutgers missing Cliff Amoria, you have Purdue missing Zach Edey, you have Michigan State missing Tyson Walker. You have a lot of these teams missing holes or missing players that left. Like Indiana, that was the bad situation. They lost Jalen Hood-Schifino last year, right? That was a major hole they needed. In a conference where everybody had a lot of their big players back. But now you see a lot of these really good players leaving. It's kind of the best time, I feel like, for Northwestern to have this happen with Boo Buie leaving.
Yeah.
Northwestern will play Dayton, Montana State, Butler, Yeah, they really don't have much of a non-conference. Georgia Tech, DePaul. Yeah, probably their marquee games in the non-conference are probably you're playing you're playing Georgia Tech in Wisconsin, and you're playing Butler in Arizona. You don't really have any tough road games. At Dayton is honestly probably the toughest road game this team's going to have in the
Yeah.
non-conference. So, which Dayton's no slouch. Dayton's a good team. So,
No, can't sleep
all
on
right.
them.
No, you cannot. All right, Burke. Let's get to Ohio State. So Ohio
Let's
State,
get to it.
they scrimmaged Cincinnati or had an exhibition with Cincinnati. They also had a secret scrimmage against Ohio University. There's some rumors about what happened in that one. I did have to dig into that one a little bit because honestly, Burke, like one of the reasons why I picked Ohio State to be my disappointing team of the season was the Cincinnati game. I don't know if maybe I'm just a depressed fan. If I am, sure, but like I didn't see a whole lot of redeeming qualities in the Cincinnati game for Ohio
Oh man,
State.
that's a rough review.
Yeah. I mean, I was basically able to find some kind of positive with every team. My positive for State coming out of Cincinnati is Micah Parrish was one of your leading scorers. So like he was scoring well, but it's still like I think he had 11 points. It's still not a great scoring performance. Michi Johnson had 11 points, but like where's Bruce Thornton? You know, I know Aaron Bradshaw didn't play, but like, where's John Stewart? Like some of those guys, I didn't know where they were. They got killed on the boards, man. 38-21. You're not going to win basketball games when you get killed like that on the boards, especially against Cincinnati, who is number 20 in the nation. You know, I want to give them their credit, but to me, this was not a good situation for Buckeye fans.
Oh my God! So that's what you meant when watching Felix. Like,
yeah.
Now,
like I said, Bradshaw didn't play against Cincinnati,
yeah.
So you know that was a big for you that.
And
play, but
every time I'm on here and we discuss the Ohio State Buckeyes, I bring up Bradshaw because I believe in All-American transfers having like that breakaway. Like Mike Woodson did it with Kalel, where you guys can do it with Bradshaw. Bradshaw can become a stud.
Yeah. They did say that Bradshaw significantly helped basically every area of the defense when he was in, and he definitely helped in rebounding when he was in against Ohio. Like I said, we didn't get to see this game. This was one of those secret scrimmages that wasn't televised, or you're not even going to see highlights of it or anything. So, you know, that's unfortunate, but I mean, I'll take people's word for it because to me, that's like that's the good, right? It's like you have Aaron Bradshaw back. Congrats. But Ohio State, they're beaten up right now. They have some injuries. They have some guys who can miss some time. They have a really tough game against Texas to start the season here on the 4th, and we'll see.
And they have a coach
John,
who's kind of getting his sea legs on how to handle that. So we'll see.
Yeah. Felix Okpara still very good. He is, man, and he's
in
improved.
Fact.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He went to a team that would really work on what he needed to work on. So I mean, good for him. Philip said Ohio State is Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde situation. Who knows how the guards play consistently? Yeah, I mean Bruce Thornton, what was he? Second team All Big Ten last year, third team All Big
He's
Ten
gotten
last year.
shine all preseason too, though. Like,
yeah,
I think it's warranted.
Yeah. So I mean, I have hope with Bruce Thornton and Michi Johnson together. Like I said, I didn't see it against Cincinnati, and maybe part of that is no Bradshaw. Maybe you don't have as good of a pick and roll game without him. But for me, like, I don't know. Good job recruiting by Jake Diebler. He's getting a lot of good players in the system, but you know we're gonna have to put it together. To me, honestly, when I watched the Cincinnati game, it honestly felt. Again, I'm probably just a depressed Ohio State fan. I'm sorry. Everybody has to listen to this. Like they got down early and they stormed back and had a 12-4 run at the end of the first half, and they came out and it's like then they just started losing again. So it's like I don't know. Like this is the same stuff we saw under Holtman, right? Like we saw him get down early, and then we saw him make the surge back at the end of the half, and then we saw him come out, and it's like, okay, here we go. This is the team we saw at the beginning of the game.
It was a lot of if you can make those 7 minutes 20, we are good.
Yeah, exactly. Philip saying it's more of a Michi question. Yeah, I felt like Michi played well in the scrimmage, so that was kind of why I was going toward Thornton. Like I didn't feel like Thornton was. I don't have a box score, so I can't tell you exactly how many turnovers and stuff like that. But just it seemed like Thornton didn't have his best game against Cincinnati. So I remember at one point they showed Jake Diebler. He looked back to his assistant coach and he said, "What are we doing on defense?" And it's like, yeah, I don't like to see that from my head coach, especially his very first game as like the
Yeah.
official head coach. So, yeah, I don't know. This is his very first game. I think he got hired last year. I don't know. Who knows? So we'll see. We'll see. I hope Ohio State doesn't make me depressed all season. All right, Burke, let's go to a commercial really fast. I need to take a drink.
All right.
So
Cool.
we'll go to a commercial really fast, guys, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about Oregon.
CBB Analytics isn't just another stat site, it's your ultimate destination for in-depth college basketball analysis used by fans and even the coaches. It has comprehensive stats for men's and women's basketball across Division 1 through 3 dating all the way back to 2018. From shooting percentage to game recap, CBB Analytics has it all. Try CBB Analytics for free or pay for a tier to take your basketball knowledge to the next level.
Back here on the Big Ten Huddle. I want to appreciate everybody for being here. If you're watching on the football channel, please do go over and subscribe to the basketball channel as well. The link for that is in the description. I would greatly appreciate it if you head over there. We are now going to get into Oregon, which, Burke, I couldn't find a single scrimmage for Oregon. I don't know if they just kept everything secret, but dude, everybody's just covering football right now for Oregon. So maybe there was something and they just didn't cover it. I don't know, but it's football city in Oregon right now. So these are just kind of my standard thoughts, knowing what I know about this team. Jackson Shellstad is going to be good. Jamari Phillips, they're both going to be versatile, flexible players who can do a number of things. Obviously, Dana Altman, good coach. He has Nate Biddle on this team. From reports saying that he's done well in practice, but there's some consistency issues that I guess Altman was talking about in one of his previews in the presser in practice. So we'll see where it goes there. But I mean, I got to be honest. Like, there's not a whole lot to go on here when you don't have an exhibition and you basically have a beat that's not covering the team because everything's going so well in football. Like, there's not much else I can say.
And we're not familiar with like the identities you can go back and fall back on with these programs. We're just not. I'm not, at least.
Yeah. So if you're an Oregon fan and you were like, "Oh yeah, Oregon basketball content, very first time," I apologize. I really.
Hey, Dana Altman said the team's healthy, so have optimism. There's your Oregon content.
There you go. Team is healthy. I think Supreme Cook was the only one that he mentioned is like coming back from an injury, which, like, come on, that's the best name ever, right? Supreme
That's
Cook.
A pretty good name. That's a pretty good name. Dang.
Let Supreme cook.
Yeah.
Right? That's what we need. All right. Let's see if there's any questions or anything in the chat. John says, we can't let Oregon win the Big Ten in both football and basketball in their first year.
That's okay. Indiana's winning it both.
How funny would it be if we got a Big Ten championship game of both Indiana and Oregon in football and basketball?
That would be so ridiculous. The first year we welcome everyone in, Indiana's the original founding member that asked to compete for football. Jeez. Oh my gosh. I hope you guys would switch up really quick for Indiana if we were going up against Oregon in the Big Ten championship. I hope all my founding members of this are with me.
LFG saying he's excited for March 3rd at Evanston. Looking forward to UCLA defeating Northwestern at Welsh Ryan Arena. Why Northwestern? Are you going to it? I don't know. I guess UCLA beating anybody would be good for a UCLA fan. But, yeah, that's interesting. Appreciate you being here, LFG. All right. He's noting a bunch of games in here. Okay, he's saying January 4th at Lincoln. Excited to see UCLA defensive star Kobe Johnson steal the ball from Tryhard, Nebraska, and dunk it on the other end. But listen, Sam Hoiberg is a bit of a tryhard, which is fine. I don't I don't say it's a bad thing, but he is definitely an effort
when
guy.
you just hear, oh, you're on the team because it's your dad, you have a chip on your shoulder and you have to act like you have to be like that.
That's true. That's true. John says IU Twitter is going to explode if the football team somehow manages to land Julian Lewis. Listen, this would be an Indiana fan's dream if football team lands Julian Lewis, goes to the Big Ten championship, and then basketball goes to the Big Ten championship in basketball. It'd be like, what did God do to bless the Hoosiers so much?
Dude, I want Julian Lewis so bad, but ultimately, it ain't about who's throwing the ball. It's about who's calling the plays, and whoever's throwing the ball, I trust. Actually, with this guy, it's crazy. I've never felt this way as a football fan. Yeah, this must have been how Alabama fans felt.
Yeah. There you go. You are the new Alabama. You're the Alabama of the North.
You said it, not me.
All right, well, let's move on before I say too much.
Let's talk some more basketball.
Somebody's going to burn me if I say too much. Penn State played against Lafayette in their game. No box score for this one, but I was able to glean some stats from a couple different articles. The starting center, Yannick Konen Niederhauser, probably pronouncing that wrong, but that was my best. He got 15 points, 5 rebounds. I know, right? We need some nicknames for guys this year, by the way. DeMarco Dunn, 13 points, 5 of 8, including 3 from 3 from behind the arc. Ace Baldwin Jr. doing Ace Baldwin Jr. things, 11 points, 9 assists. I am so glad he's back this year. I love watching Ace Baldwin play. And I love that he's stuck with Penn State, too. Like, it would have been easy for him to go off and go to someplace else, but, man, major respect for Ace Baldwin. Zach Hicks did have 11 points as well. They were 52.4% from three-point range and overall 50% shooting, 21 points off 15 Lafayette turnovers. Would like to see that number be a little bit bigger, 15 turnovers, some more there. And then Lafayette only shot 38% from the field and 28% shooting from the three-point line. Burke, I feel like this is just kind of who Penn State is. Like, I didn't see a whole lot of different stuff this season. I mean, good defensive play. Ace Baldwin Jr. locked up anybody he was on. It was pretty much balanced scoring. I did feel like the 5 was improved for Penn State with Yannick and what he was able to do. But at the end of the day, like, they still have some rebounding struggles. Lafayette had a 17-13 lead in the rebounding at one point. Like, you shouldn't be getting out-rebounded by Lafayette. At the end of the first half, the offensive consistency kind of varied. They went on some runs, and they went on some droughts. Like, I don't know. Like, do you see anything different with this Penn State team this year than what you saw last year?
You said the 5 is different, and, I mean, that's the key. That's everything. The 5's everything in the Big Ten. Like, you need to be able to have a competent front court for your back court to win a game. Like, and 15 points for a Penn State center – that, I mean, even if it is against Lafayette, take some optimism from that. Like, you can build on that. That is any amount of production from that position for this team is something to be happy about. And 15 points from your center, I mean, you can't be upset with the way he showed up.
Yeah, I think that's a huge improvement for Penn State this year. Hopefully he does a little bit better on the rebounding end, as you know, it's kind of what I felt like needed to be the biggest thing. But yeah.
Yeah, and then you were talking about Ace Baldwin. It's so amazing he came back. It really is. I can't imagine really how much more money he was offered somewhere else that he turned down. Like, I bet he genuinely was. And that's a stand-up guy. That's a program guy right there.
Yeah, he's really got Mike Rhodes back, man. He went with him from VCU to Penn State, sticking with Penn State one more year. Can't say enough good things about Ace Baldwin Jr. from what I know. All right, let's move on to Purdue. Burke, we got some Purdue action to talk about right now.
You want to start it? You start it.
I'll start it, don't worry. So, let's start with the positives. Purdue loses to Creighton, 93-87. That was obviously a negative, but Braden Smith, Fletcher Lawyer, Trey Kaufman-Renn, this is like a big 3 type of situation for Purdue. They have 3 very good players. Those 3 played really well together, and that was kind of it. Those 3 played really well, and CJ Cox was really good on defense. Drew 3 fouls. He also only caused one foul. Like, for me, very good job on defense for CJ Cox. But, I mean, you had 17 points by players not named Braden, Fletcher, and TKR. You have to get more than that. I
Yeah.
don't know what else to say. Like, we heard all this stuff about Miles Coleman and Cam Heide, who I still think can live up to what was said about him. And don't worry, chat. We'll get to Burke in just a second. No worries. But, like, I look at it and I'm like, we heard so much about these two and COVID and Heide, but I hardly saw them. Like, Braden and Fletcher was trying to get others involved. Like, it wasn't like they were just hogging the ball so much. Braden had 7 assists in this game, 31 points, 7 assists. TKR, I felt like he did some good passing as well. It wasn't like he was a ball hog. Like, I don't know. Like, for me, I heard so much about those two that was kind of what I was relying on. I mean, this is still going to be a good team. Don't get me wrong. I'm freaking out because I think if you don't get production from those two, Purdue's probably not going to win the Big Ten.
Yeah, depending on 31 points a night from your point guard's tough. But I mean, Braden has exceptional skill. He does. That was a crazy amount of production that we all saw. I saw the highlights, but as for the rest, what was Will Burke's stat line? Can you fill me in on that?
Not good. Yeah,
I'm gonna
not
say
good.
so. Pro Braden Smith. Con. Y'all were telling me all offseason Will Burke is going to replace Zach Edey, and what's the stat line?
2 points, 4 fouls.
How many minutes? Yeah, 4 fouls. And you know why he didn't have more minutes? Because if he would have picked up that foul in the 14th minute, all the Indiana fans would have had a field day on that kid. And I give credit to Painter for saving him from that.
Yeah. I mean, Jacobson looked good, though. Like, that was the thing. Like, Jacobson looks like you're 5. I guess that's my biggest concern is, like, I know Matt Painter's a really good coach. But, like, Matt Painter, what in the world happened in practice that you thought it was a good idea to start Will Burke over Daniel Jacobson? Like, what in the world?
Dude,
I know Burke is tall, man, but he's not better than Jacobson.
Those big three are a big three. They are a great big three. TKR, he has great touch. He has great touch. I'm going to keep saying the compliment before. I don't think he's going to be like a bruiser against Ballo and Renew. See, I put everything in context against Indiana. That's just the way I am. But it is that front court that it's glaring that it's not there. I mean, not really in TKR. I just mean Zach being gone, huge hole to fill. Like we said before, like I said before, if you want to be competent and competitive year after year, you got to utilize the transfer portal. And if you don't utilize the transfer portal, you make promises to freshmen. You make promises to top tier freshmen that can contribute to your team.
Well, and who did you see in practice that you thought was going to play over him? What was his name? The one that left? I'm blanking right now.
Kanan Catchings.
Catchings, that's right. Like, who did you promise? Or, like, why wouldn't you promise that he would play? Like, Kanan Catchings obviously was going to be better than Cam Heide and Miles Colvin and these other guys that you saw. At the very least, you start him and you give him minutes out there and help him improve. And yes, Brenton, this is what just tall looks like. Will Burke is what just tall looks like. For everybody that said Zach Edey is just tall, you found it.
No, Zach Edey was the most resilient dude at that size ever. Like, he just, I don't even know what word I'm looking for. Just consistent. Like, he just wasn't a guy that big should be injured every other day.
And he should be fouling every other day.
And I don't mean that like negatively. I just mean
no,
physically. How is he not injured every day?
Just look at Greg Oden's career. Yeah. I mean, and he was 3 inches shorter than Zach Edey was, or 4 inches shorter.
No,
so,
and it is like the spot that they're losing, the spot that they needed addressed the hardest. They had 2 chances to have that answered, like heading into this season. They let Mason walk, and then Kanan could have been the answer. But it's just.
Well, that's what Philip is asking. He's like, well, how much does Kanan Catchings help? Well, John just put it. He says Kanan Catchings had 19 points in their game last night. Like, I don't know. Like, 19 points would have really helped when they scored more than the rest of the team scored outside of that top 3. I don't know. Probably would have helped.
Yeah.
I get what Matt Painter's doing. Like, he doesn't want to promise a guy and make the guy all about the team. I get that. And I kind of hate it that I'm going against him because I do like that about Painter.
Yeah.
But, like, because I think that's the best way to play basketball. But I don't think that's consistent success in college basketball today. Like, you're going to have to make promises to some of these younger guys that are better when you look at Cam Heide and Miles Colvin play and say, they can't get me more than a few points. Like, how much?
It's an unrealistic modus operandi in like today's NIL.
Cam Heide had 0 points and Miles Colvin had 2. Like,
yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe it was just a bad day. Don't get me wrong. I don't want to overreact to one.
No, but even then, if it was a bad day, like Braden is, you can't tell me Braden's scoring 31 tonight. Like,
I mean,
I think he could average around 20, mid-20s with how much he's going to have to do on this, but he ain't scoring 31 a night. For every 31 night, he'll have a 20 night. And it's like,
Willard was his coach, and he just wanted him to go out there and do it like he did with the point guard. Why am I blanking on his name?
Jameer.
Jameer. Yeah, like if Kevin Willard was his coach, he could do it. I'm not saying Braden Smith is Jameer Young, but obviously he has that capability. But I don't think Painter's going to want him to do that. Painter's going to want him to deliver the ball around more and try to get other guys involved. And he tried that in this game. But, like, I mean, Fletcher was also trying it too. Like, it wasn't like Fletcher was just staying in the corner and shooting. Like, he was getting involved and doing that stuff too. So, I don't know. I'm not worried. Like, I don't have a big panic level for Purdue. I still think they're going to be one of the top 4 teams in the Big Ten. But, I mean, you have a big 3 like that.
Until they aren't, we have to say that as much as it sickens us.
I still think IU's going to win the Big Ten, though. So
yeah, but
I still have a little bit easier saying they're going to have to include 4.
That. Yeah, it is.
Let's see. Trying to see what else we got here in the chat. 8 and 10 from the floor, 2 for 3 from 3. I think he's talking about catches there. Yeah, man, that is rough.
Yeah,
that's rough. That's rough.
You gotta play the game. Play the game.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but that's what college basketball is nowadays. So, all right. Anything else on Purdue before we move on?
No, I genuinely no hate for Purdue. Well, I mean, when we play each other, mad hate. But I like when Purdue looks good because I like when Indiana and Purdue is like a big game. When they're like, oh, is this rivalry overtaking North Carolina Duke? Like, whenever that question is even thrown up on PTI, that gets me going. That gets me juiced.
Yeah.
So I want them to do well against everybody but us.
Yeah. I hear you. All right. Moving on to, here we go, LFG, just for you. Oh, wait, no. I apologize. Rutgers. Moving on to Rutgers. Sorry, this one's for Steven. LFG, we'll get to UCLA in just a second. I really, really like Rutgers, Burke. I really like Dylan Harper. I really like Ace Bailey. I think that these 2 guys are fantastic. I think that Ace Bailey's athleticism is going to be freaky for Rutgers this year. There was a play. It wasn't successful, but it was close enough that you were like, oh my gosh, this guy is a crazy physical specimen. Where he was, so, long story short, Ace Bailey's going to basically have to be the rim protector this year. Rutgers doesn't have a rim protector on defense, and Ace Bailey has the size and the athleticism to be that for them, so that's probably what he's going to be. But he's athletic enough that he's not going to be guarding the 5, so he's going to have to be in the paint more. Well, his guy was in the corner. He was in the paint. They throw a skip pass over to the guy in the corner, and Ace Bailey's closeout, he almost blocked the shot. Like, that's how high he jumped, and that's how quickly he got over there. Like, I swear he got a finger on the ball, and it was just – and it wasn't like the guy was like 5'6" or something like that. Like, he was 6'1", 6'2". He wasn't a short guy. I guess not 6'1", 6'2". He was probably 6'4", 6'5". Like, it wasn't like he was a super small guy, but still, like, it's just crazy. This team is going to be really, really something to watch. I don't know how well they're going to do.
That's the thing. They're going to be really, really something to watch. Like, for better or worse, that could be a fun season. But there are a lot. They've lost a lot, and you can see that the role players that they do have They just weren't able to maybe afford as healthy of role supporting staff, considering
Right.
what I have to imagine they paid the stars of this team.
Right. I mean, Bryce Williams and JaMychal Davis, I mean, these guys are playmakers with the ball in their hand, right? So these guys are making plays in addition to Harper, in addition to Bailey and stuff like that. But I just, like, for the first time ever, I have concerns about defense for a Rutgers team.
Yeah, it's so crazy that Rutgers' most hyped season is their most anti-identity season.
Right. I mean, Harper got himself in some foul trouble at one point, so that was definitely something that you got to watch if you're Rutgers. Says I don't think they have a point guard to run this team without Harper. I mean, they have guys that'll be able to punch in there and do well for bits, but I mean, if you lose Harper for a long period of time in the game, that's going to be really bad for them.
Oh my gosh, I didn't even think about the possibility of Rutgers not having one of these guys.
Yeah, yeah, that's the hard part. And
Yeah.
it's Bailey too. Like, I think they'll be more okay if Bailey gets in trouble because I think you have Harper running the point, and I think you have other guys on offense that have playmaking ability. But you definitely, like, you already don't have a 5, so like if you lose Bailey, like the gates of layups are just open now.
Yeah.
So, let's see if I had any other thoughts. I think that was it. Oh, the timing was a little off on some of their pick and rolls and stuff like that. This definitely looks like a team that's still gelling and working together. I wanted to note that I don't think that's something that's going to continue. I think as these guys play together more, you're going to get some of that stuff. But when you have 2 true freshmen, when you have a bunch of guys playing together for the first time, like this, and I know Harper and Bailey have played together before, but still, like in the college setting, it's a new thing for them to be playing together with this much timing and pace and stuff like that. So, all right, Burke. Anything else on Rutgers?
No. Excited to see some real basketball with them.
All right. LFG said, looking forward to seeing highlights of games played at the Rack this season. Is it still the Rack?
Yeah, that's what I call it. It's RAC. It's a recreational athletic center, I think, something like that.
Yeah.
But even then, LFG, like you say that.
But you don't want to see those highlights against your team.
You're not gonna like the Rack, dude. It's like it's a real thing.
The Rack is rocking, man. Philip says Jeremiah Williams. I apologize. I said Bryce Williams. Bryce Williams on Nebraska. I'm going to do that all season. I just know I am. Jeremiah Williams is their other point guard. He did well for Rutgers last year, but I think you need. I don't think JaMychal Davis is enough off the ball to really help Jeremiah Williams. I mean, don't get me wrong. JaMychal Davis, I think, is good, but I just don't think he's enough all on his own. So, Philip says Jersey Mikes. All right, let's get to UCLA here. We have UCLA, 60 points in the paint against Cal State, over 50% from 3. Kobe Johnson did some good passing. The Oregon State transfer, Tyler Bolodo, however you pronounce his name, I apologize. He proved to be a really good scorer for this team. This is the type of player that you needed Mick Cronin to bring in. He brought him in, credit to him. However, Cal State did shoot over 50% from three-pointer as well, so that's a little bit of a concern for me. Is UCLA losing some of that perimeter defense with what they've gained in offense and stuff like that? I tend to think Mick Cronin will get that stuff put together. And UCLA fans, I'm sorry. I'm not trying to insult Mick Cronin here, but I'm just being honest. I watched the press conference after the game. Dude, I would hate to cover UCLA basketball if I was a reporter. He treats those reporters like crap, man.
Yeah, it's going
to be pretty funny watching
his
these
premiere
press
at the
conferences
Big
this
Ten
year.
Media Day was truly something. Like, the attitude he's coming in with is impressive. I don't know if it's just impressively asinine or impressively just, confident in yourself. Whatever it is, he is doing it exceptionally.
He's got confidence, that's for sure. It was funny because one of the reporters asked him a question. They were like, hey, one of the guys on your team said something about it was his goal this year to go 40, 50, 90, which if you don't know basketball, you probably don't know what that means. Obviously, everybody probably does. But 40, 50, 90s, 40% from the field, 50%, 50% from the field, 40% shooting from three, and 90% shooting free throws, which is a good goal to have. Well, when he said that, Mick Cronin, he said, I don't know what you're talking about. You're speaking another language to me. And then he turned back to his players like, can one of you guys tell me what he's talking about here? And like none of the players answered. They were like, what? Like, what are you talking about, coach? He was like, no, I know where you got that from. I know where you got that from because he got it from me because I told him
I don't even know.
I was like, Mick, dude, what are you doing? So, I mean,
Dude,
credit
it's
to
gonna
him.
be so
He put
like,
a really good team together this year, I think. But like I said, I would hate to cover him if I was a beat reporter, man.
but what's a coach like that doing in the Pac-12? Like, go to a
I don't
conference
know.
that cares about basketball, man. Like,
I
if you're
don't
going to
know.
act like that, the country needs to see it.
I am looking forward to when he plays some of these bigger games and we get reporters from like Purdue or like I don't know, like name your school, Indiana, whatever. Like some of these reporters from other Big Ten schools going and asking him questions because we might get Mick Cronin blown up on our reporter.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
might get it to happen.
Hey, I mean, I don't know how many more years Fran's going to be coaching. We need somebody to step up.
Oh, that would be a legendary matchup. Fran and Mick at center court staring at each other. And Fran is so much taller than Mick too, and like he's like looking down on him, which that'll just make Mick more aggressive.
Yeah, but I think Mick is probably so much louder. So it's kind of an equal fight there.
I appreciate LFG is he's agreeing with me. Mick is way too. Okay, I mean, like he was laughing, like that was the thing. I think he felt like he was being funny, which like to him, I'm sure he was, but I don't know.
Yeah, maybe that's just a guy that's not used to cutting loose.
I guess
He's a rookie in the field of cutting loose.
Yeah. For me, UCLA press conferences after the game are going to be as much must watch as UCLA games are this season because he's gonna do something to a reporter. I can feel it. All right, back to UCLA basketball for a second. We can't just make the entire UCLA segment Mick Cronin what in the world he's doing. Are you concerned with the 3-point defense? You have Cal State coming in shooting over 50% from three. Any thoughts there?
You could be, but these exhibition games, man, sometimes these lesser schools just get red hot, just get out of your mind hot from behind the arc. I don't know I don't have the stats up. What was do you have
I didn't get a box score, unfortunately, for this one. These were some of the stats I gathered from.
So, like, I don't want to invest too much in that 3-point shooting because, yeah, sometimes these smaller schools just have a dude that goes unconscious for one game and you're just the victim in the way.
Yeah.
But yeah, if that 3-point defense is a problem moving forward, they're at least in a decent conference that probably won't kill you as many as others. Like,
right,
you pick the right conference to be in, I would say, but
yeah, there's not as much 3-point shooting. Well, I don't know if the stats back that up. I don't feel like there was as much 3-point shooting in the Big Ten as there was in the Pac-12 last year. Maybe somebody will give me a comment on YouTube and tell me I'm wrong, but that's the way it felt. Few really positive things. I kind of pointed them out earlier. 60 points in the paint from UCLA. That was one area that I was kind of concerned about is how they were going to score in the paint. Felt like that, they had some good players around, but, maybe their scores down low weren't as good. Tyler Belodo, he scored really well in this one. Kobe Johnson impressed me with his decision-making and distributing the ball. Felt like that was a really good piece from him, and then they shot really well, over 50% from three as well. So, I mean, I don't think you could have had a better performance against a lower tier team if you were UCLA. Obviously, every team is different that you want to see different stuff from. But considering from UCLA, like it looked like a lot of the issues that they had last year. Of course, I didn't watch them as much since they weren't in the Big Ten. But from what I saw, it looked like a lot of the issues that UCLA had this year looked addressed and looked fixed based on the guys they were able to bring in. So. All right, Burke, let's talk some USC. USC went against Gonzaga and won. They beat Gonzaga. That was pretty surprising to me that USC was able to do that. I mean,
I was just here last week. I was just here last week and said they were the worst team in the Big Ten.
I know, man. I literally thought, I couldn't remember if it was you or Dylan that said that. And I literally thought as I was watching this game, I was like, these guys are going to be so wrong about USC.
Yeah. Between the USC and Rutgers picks, I think those were two terrible picks.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I mean, we'll see what happens. You never know with Gonzaga. They could have been working some different stuff out. Who knows? But I was really impressed that USC was basically able to switch every single time on defense against Gonzaga. Now, the switching did become an issue at times because of the defensive communication. I felt like they needed to communicate better on some of those switches, and you had guys coming off picks, both of them guarding one guy. Sometimes both of them were guarding the guy that wasn't the ball handler. So it's like, wow, that's not good.
Yeah.
But I feel like that's stuff that you can pretty well fix up here in the next few weeks of practice and get that to be a much better level than what it was. So, I mean, I know Gonzaga probably wasn't, doing their best. Obviously, they're trying their best, but I don't think they put their best stuff out there. I think they were trying a lot of new stuff, but I mean, with a team with like Nimhard and stuff like that,
Yeah.
it's an impressive win, whether they're giving their best or not.
Yeah, honestly, there's no shade I can really throw to them after that one. Like, yeah. I just have to hope that I can throw it later.
Philip says, captain of the transfer portal, must bus, will be interesting. Is he more of a captain than Underwood?
I don't know, because I feel like they leave more amicably with Underwood. I feel like, I don't know. I feel like he is probably like captain of it, but he's a mean captain. I don't something about it.
Yeah. I do think
like
USC had more players, but I think that was probably because he switched to USC from Arkansas, but I don't know. Who knows? But I know.
Well, it is the whole program shift and having to fill a roster with 13 dudes.
Yeah. So, all right. Two more teams, Burke. We're going to do a commercial really fast, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about the two more teams. So stay with us, everybody.
Cool.
Homefield is your go-to destination for premium collegiate apparel with a passion for comfort and a flair for vintage design. Homefield brings you gear that is comfortable and stylish. With over 150 colleges to choose from, Homefield digs deep into the archives, uncovering forgotten logos, iconic mascots, and legendary moments to create one-of-a-kind apparel. Use my code TBTH for 15% off for new customers, or use my link in the description.
Back here on the Big Ten Huddle, we want to say we appreciate everybody being here for the basketball episode. If you enjoy the basketball episode, like and subscribe. We definitely appreciate that as well. Brent said too many teams. Yeah, this is the hard part. So, unfortunately, I think during the non-conference, we won't be able to talk about every single game, nor do we need to. But once we get in the conference play, we'll talk about every one of them. So. That's true. Philip says must bus was only transfers. Underwood did bring in multiple freshmen. That's true. Good point there, Philip. All right. Washington went up against Western Oregon. Took care of business pretty solidly in this one, 105-68. Now, Western Oregon, obviously not a Division I team, so that was a game that Washington should win. But I mean, point and simple, like I don't really know if I have too much from this one. Washington just destroyed Western Oregon. They had way more size. They didn't have very many turnovers. I think they out-rebounded them 54-32, so the size advantage helps there. But they did need to improve their communication on defense a little bit, similar to USC. Felt like there was some switching and stuff like that at times where, one guy wasn't going with another and stuff like that. So the offense, I listened to Danny Sprinkle's press conference afterward. He said that it felt choppy at times. I felt like that was mostly just because they were killing them so bad that Washington kind of just like took a few possessions off, which you can nitpick at that. Yeah, I mean, I'm not really going to nitpick a team for coasting when they win by 40. Are you?
No. Now I will if the Hoosiers do, because we need to beat teams by like 60 now.
There you go.
I guess that coast, man. Yeah, you can coast, but in today's game, like, should you? You really shouldn't. You should just beat a team by as many points as possible.
Yeah.
But I mean, if it's an exhibition, why? I mean, it doesn't matter. Computer's not going to take that one. So,
Right. Washington did have some good performances. DJ Davis had 16 points in this one, so that's a good performance by him. 3 assists as well. They had multiple players with 3 or more assists. Makai Mason also had 4 assists and 8 points, and then Tyler Anaconcho, he had 0 points, but he had 4 assists. Everybody that played for Washington was in the plus and the plus minus. Impressive there, but at the end of the day, like I said, Washington destroyed them. Great job, Washington. I mean, you should destroy them. I don't know if this really changes my thoughts on them, though.
no, that's the question I was going to ask you. Are you ready to remove them from the basement?
I mean, I feel like there were other teams that played worse than they did against similar level teams, like Iowa, for example. They let a team like this score 81 on them. Like,
yeah.
Oh, that's right. John did bring it up. He said Andy Katz had great Osibor as a better player than Braden Smith. I don't know how you do that. Like,
I don't know how you could
Utah State
you
last
can
year.
project
Like
that. It's impossible to project that. Like, he's
I don't know.
playing
That's
a
just
different
disrespectful.
position, a different play style than he can play. Can you play that play style against the size in the Big Ten? I don't.
Yeah. LFG says, I like Washington's new hoops coach. I don't know who Washington has on their roster, almost a whole new team. Yeah, I mean, they brought in some good players. Gray Osibor was a really good player from Utah State. I think he was there with Danny Sprinkle, if I'm not mistaken. So that was a good bring in for them. DJ Davis is another good one. But, I mean, at the end of the day, like, Zoom Diallo, like, these are players that should be good. But the issue is here you don't really have like a for sure all conference player on this team. Great Osibor should, but you know, I don't have anybody on here that's for sure.
Yeah.
You know? So, and yeah, Philip agrees. Oh, whoops, sorry, that was John's. Cat's list was trolling half the time. It kind of was. I mean, did you hear the explanation for why he had Braden Smith 6?
No.
He was like, "Oh yeah, Braden Smith. He just doesn't have the size or the talent. Really good production, no size, no talent." And I was like, "Well, he didn't say no size, no talent, but he said he doesn't have the size and the talent to be in the top 5." And I was like,
Yeah.
is it just size and talent? Like, are we just going to look at if they're going to get drafted high in the NBA and say if that's size or talent or not? Like,
yeah, Andy's out of control if I'm defending Braden Smith. So,
oh, Andy, yeah, I don't know. I just don't know how you do that. Yeah. LFG says Big Ten fans should not power rank Iowa above Washington. I hope those teams meet this coming season. I do think Iowa has more top tier players. Peyton Sandford, I think, Owen Freeman, co-freshman of the year last year. Like, I do think that they have better players in that regard, but it's just the coaching. I mean, Fran just doesn't give a care about defense in the world. It seems like, I don't know.
is there something I'm missing with that comment? I just mean like, is like Washington the Iowa of the Pac-12? What was the?
No, I think he was
I'm
just
just
saying because I made the comparison when I talked about
okay.
81 points scored against Iowa.
No, I was just like,
That's what
was
I'm saying.
Washington running an Iowa play style
Yeah.
the whole time?
Yeah. LFG says Washington's coach is way better than Iowa's coach, Fran. So, I mean, probably overall, like, Fran's got a really good offensive team. I don't know. It just blows my mind, Iowa, every single year with what they're doing. So, but I picked them to be my surprise team. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Maybe it was a fluke. It's not a fluke. All right. What's Wisconsin, Burke? Let's finish up talking about the Badgers. Greg Gard decided his team needed to shoot the ball from 3 25 plus times in the game. I don't know. I know they had some pretty good shooters coming back. John Blackwell shot nearly 50% from the field last year. Free tag, they're bringing him in. He was a pretty good shooter. Like, I know they have some of these guys that are good shooters, but I mean, I don't know. Did it seem like too much to you?
Yeah, for sure. Considering like the shooting you thought they lost, but yeah, I going into a season on Wisconsin, I just always think Wisconsin's going to be Wisconsin. They're going to give Indiana headaches. We're not going to win in Cole because when have we ever won in Cole? Yeah, I don't really have any thoughts on this team right now. I can't really size them up based on that. You got to think it's just going to hit at a more efficient rate, and you probably can't be so upset about it eventually, but
yeah. I had forgotten the exact number. I just looked it up in the box score. They shot 32 3-pointers in this one. They were 11 for 32. What were you going to say?
Yeah, that's good. That's all right. 30.
Yeah, they shot more 3-pointers than they shot free throws, which is always interesting when that happens. They did get 15 offensive rebounds, so, this could be a much better rebounding team than maybe some people give them credit for. Carter Gilmore had 3 himself. Stephen Crowell had 2, so, that was but a lot of the guys that, like Jack Robinson, Isaac Gard, Chris Hodges, some of these guys that played like 1 or 3 minutes were guys that got offensive rebounds that kind of added to that. So Isaac Gard, I wonder if that's Greg Gard's son. I didn't notice that. If it is, we have another son playing for a coach.
Oh my God, what? Oh my God.
It looks like he won't play much though. He played 1 minute in this game, so probably won't see him much.
There's a new one that springs up every other week.
I know. John Tonji in this one, he was the leading scorer with 15 points, 3-11 shooting field goals, 1 for 7. He did get to the free throw line, 8 for 9, so he was attacking that basket. He was pretty much the only one, though. The only other person that had more than 2 free throws in the game was Stephen Crowell, who had 4, and he went 2 for 4 from the free throw line. So, my interesting thing with this is, I do credit Wisconsin for trying to be something, right? I give credit to a coach who is trying to put his team together in a certain way and trying to have his team be that and trying things out in the game. But when it's 47-45 against a team you should overmatch, I don't think it's working, right? Whatever they were doing to try and get those 3-pointers, to me, it's just okay, this isn't working. If a team that you should obviously overmatch in UW, Wisconsin River Falls, if it's 47-5 against them, you got to change things up.
Yeah.
So, Philip says, typical Greg Gard season, incoming coach of the year by exceeding low expectations. I don't know. At this point, I'm not going to overreact to it too much because it is an exhibition, but after this performance, I probably would have considered Wisconsin to possibly be my worst team in the Big Ten.
Ooh.
I'm still,
right. Yeah,
I picked Washington. I still got to rock with that, but.
Yeah, get the 20-point lead. Take your advice from Ole Miss. Get to that big lead and then get funky with it.
Yeah. Philip, you're right. Freitag, he's going to be a player to watch for Wisconsin. He, if I remember correctly, he didn't have the best game ever against them. Yeah, he only played 7 minutes, had 1 point on a free throw, but he's one that they're going to have to get playing more. They brought him in. He has to be something for him. So we'll see. We'll see what he turns into. But in this game, they only played him 7 minutes. So we'll see. I think that's all I got on Wisconsin. You have anything else?
No, I'm good.
All right. LFG says, sure, I will eat crow. Iowa hosts Washington at Carver on February 22nd. Watch Washington make Coach Fran look like the second coming of John Wooden. If that happens, that would be pretty crazy.
If that happens, we better kick UCLA's ass out of this conference.
No, it's not about
Washington.
Need him. Washington, not UCLA.
No, I'm saying John Wooden. We don't need him heading back there.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying.
Nobody needs him heading back there.
Yeah, we like for everybody to win some championships and not just John Wooden. So.
No, I welcome this new UCLA. They're a little less dominant than that old one.
Yeah, a little bit more grouchy with Mick.
But also, I would say pretty much everyone's a little less dominant than that old one. So
that's true.
Fair to them.
Well, Burke, we were gonna do some preview of Ohio State, Texas. Unfortunately, I didn't have enough time to really look up that much on that game because I was doing so much with this. Do you have any thoughts about that game at all? Ohio State, we talked about them a little bit. I mean, this is
Sorry, which one?
Coach Terry's second year, I think. Ohio State, Texas. It's on November 4th. Um, to me, I feel like it could be similar to Cincinnati. Texas is ranked 20th in the nation. Cincinnati is ranked 20th, or Texas is ranked 19th in the nation. Cincinnati is ranked 20th. Could be something similar. I'm not sure. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, you would know better than me on that, but you, Texas is a tough one, man. You guys went out there and you got the non-conference schedule. That is pretty aggressive to put in the hands of that rookie coach, but you just
Yeah, Ohio
gotta
State
hope
put
that
together.
Bradshaw comes out strong. Oh, what?
I was gonna say, Jake Diebler put together a really, really tough schedule this year for them. They play in Texas. I think just like a couple games later, they're playing Texas A&M. There's even, I mean, they played Cincinnati in an exhibition game. On top of that, you've got Auburn, Kentucky, and the CBS Sports Classic coming up. Um, yeah, I mean it's pretty brutal. Now, I don't think
Yeah.
Indiana State will be what they were last year, but if they can do anything like they did last year, that'll be a tough game as well. So we'll we'll see what Ohio State's going to be this year. But honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if Ohio State enters conference play with like 3 or 4 losses.
Yeah, that's a tough lot you just told me.
Yeah. So, but I mean, that's what good teams do, right? Good teams schedule tough teams in the non-con, get you ready for the conference play. We'll see. So, all right, Burke. I don't really have anything else. We got people starting to talk about football in the chat now. Curtis Rourke is
Yep.
playing. That's what we love to
Yes,
see.
I mean, hey, he's on track. All things look
Yeah.
promising. So
Signetti said so.
Heisman's back on schedule.
John said, "I like Chris Holtmann. Is he on the hot seat?" No, he just got hired at DePaul. I think his job's pretty safe right now. No, Jake Diebler's the new head coach at Ohio State. We'll see how it goes for him. I'm hopeful that it goes well because I really like Jake Diebler, but I don't know. It's a really, really tough non-conference slate for a first-year head coach. So, yeah, he since I didn't know that he got fired right before Purdue last year, and then Diebler went on a little bit of a run with him. But
yeah, went on a tear. He went on a tear that earned him the job. It earned him the job. I mean,
yeah, I think so.
Yeah, it earned him a head coaching job. The Big Ten head coaching job it's up there.
I think it helps when your dad is a really well known. And I'm not trying to take anything away from Jake Diebler. Like I'm just saying, like I think it helps when your dad is a mainstay basketball head coach in the state of Ohio. Your brother comes and sets records at Ohio State. Like you're on the coaching staff. Every single time you've subbed in to head coach for Chris Holtmann, things have gone well for the team. Like, it was just one of those situations where it was like, this guy has done everything we've asked him to do. Why not give him a shot? And he obviously loves Ohio, the state of Ohio. He has Ohio State in his blood. Like, this is obviously somebody that deserves a shot. So,
yeah, I respect it.
Yeah. So, all right, Burke, that's all we got, man. Anything you want to mention about Often Daunted or just the Big Ten overall before we get out of here?
All right. The Indiana football program is currently Never Daunted. My name is at Often Daunted across all socials. The name more so refers to my luck and or circumstances at any given time, not so much the program at all. This team looks never daunted, and this season, Indiana basketball is going to be never daunted just as well. And yeah, just go ahead and follow me on YouTube if you are an Indiana fan. If you aren't, I doubt you'll have a great time following me, but nonetheless, I love the interactions with the other fan bases. So, yeah, everywhere at Often Daunted.
There we go. All right, everybody. Thanks for watching. We appreciate it. We will see you next Thursday. We'll have some games to talk about because we'll have games on, I think it's Monday is the 4th. We'll have some games to talk about. We'll talk about the Ohio State-Texas game on Thursday. We'll recap some of probably, not every single game that happened on the 4th, but we'll probably talk about some of the games and maybe some different thoughts here and there on other stuff that happened. But It'll be a good time. We appreciate everybody being here. We'll see you next time. Have a good one.